getting back to where we were, now it you were we were talking about your son's passing and when he became ill, as you said, you were trying to start a law practice on your own. Now, first of all, why did you decide to open a practice on your own?
Oh my goodness. Because when I left Washington, who was that? Belford, Lawson, and there were other people who knew me because who suggested, and I knew that I wanted to practice law and be a litigator, suggested that I contact some of the large law firms in St. Louis. And they gave me some names of those, and I contacted them. And also there were some not large, but there were some law firms, black law firms. Sidney Redmond, and Henry Espy, and David Grant was here and all. So I got to meet them all, and I indicated, first of all, to the white law firms, I think I may have sent a letter or something, and I never heard from them. When I went to, and I met the others, they all said, welcome me, except that as we talked, and I said that I was going to be trial lawyer, then they indicated that, well, they did not have any space for that, but I could help with the research and so forth. So then I came home and told Shelby, I'm going to open my own law practice. And so I'm going to find a place.
Why do you think that they were saying?
No, because the only other black woman, as far as I know, who was practicing law here in St. Louis was Margaret Bush Wilson, who was married to Bob Wilson. I think that was her husband. But at that particular point, she was, even though she was a lawyer and had been admitted before then, she was a part of her husband's law firm. But at that point, she was also employed by the federal government as an attorney, probably. But she was not in active practice at that point. So that was no other black woman who had her own law firm, law office. So, but anyway, I found a place, and I was told that there was a space of a lawyer, a black lawyer, who was renting a space on the second floor of the Jefferson Bank building, which at that time was Jefferson and Franklin. And that person, Lucas, was giving up his practice and was going to move to California. So that's when I went down and I at least negotiated the space for a rental. I think it was $50. Shelby and I went to secondhand places and I bought furniture for that. There was one at an office, a small reception area, and a small conference area. It was set up for this is what I needed. In the meantime, from the time that I had first started law school, I had started buying law books. You know, whenever I'd buy a book, I would buy. So at least I was beginning with a law library, and I had furniture and all. And then I negotiated. I got somebody to make a sign and put on the window, and in gold and all, Frankie Freeman, attorney at law, and all of that. And I also determined that I had to have a secretary. I found somebody who could type, who was going to work for me, and I could pay her $15 a week. And so so I opened my law office, and because I was determined that I was not going to work in somebody else's office and do the typing and do the research. I was going to practice law, and that's what I did. In the meantime, that same year, Dr. Helen Nash opened her office as a pediatrician. That was in 49 when I did. I was admitted to the Missouri Bar in 48, December 4th, and it took me that while to get organized and to get it together. And Ruth Dirty Carter was a dentist who was opening her office, and so a photographer somehow got wind of this, and there was an article in one of the black press about these three women who had their own in different places. We just knew each other at that point, had no association, but anyway, so we began to at least get a little publicity for being, I guess, whatever. But then somebody did come and looking for a lawyer, and wanted to see the lawyer, and I said, I'm the lawyer. And no, I don't want a woman. So that was a little
male, right?
Huh?
This was a
black male. He didn't want a woman.
He didn't want a woman lawyer.
In the meantime, however, Dave Grant, who was a friend and who he didn't want me, because I guess we were friends, but I just didn't want to stay in his office because I was not going to have the opportunities for practices. See, all of these were small offices. But I had also had gone to the NAACP and said I would work and take on any civil rights cases you have. But also Dave took me down and introduced me to the judges, and I said I would be available to accept pro bono if you want to appoint me to a case. Mm-hmm. And so I figured that there were things that I had to do to get people, so I get started and to get some experience too. So one of the judges appointed me to my first criminal case. And that was a case in which they were building, there was urban renewal, and they had cleared Pine Street, and some of the buildings were being torn down, and of course they hadn't been torn down, but the furniture was still there. And the person whom I was appointed to represent had been stealing the bathtub, bringing it down the steps, and he had got caught stealing the bathtub. And actually he had gotten hurt because they shot him in the leg, so he was in the hospital. So he had been charged, and so the judge appointed me to represent him. And I went to see him, and he had admitted that he was doing it, so I negotiated a plea. So we had a plea bargain, so where he was going to be released from the hospital after about another week, and that was the extent of his sentence. So that was my first criminal case.